welcome to another video episode of my podcast. My name is Cheryl, and this is Cappuccino Crafts, my little channel on YouTube, and my corner of the general interwebs where I like to talk about knitting and crochet and books and movies and TV and other life and general chatty things that I want to share with you. Thank you so very much for choosing to watch this video and spend a little bit of your time with me. I hope that you enjoy it. Please settle in, get yourself a delicious beverage, and get out your yarn, your hook, your needles, your embroidery, your spinning, whatever it is, and let's enjoy some chatty time together. And I am having a little bit of tea after lunch, and this is that Jane Austen black tea blend that I got in the page 1 box, and I still just really enjoy it. It's got black tea and mint and some lavender and maybe one or two other things I don't remember, but those are the main things and the things that I taste. And I'm having it cold today because I brewed a pot yesterday. I'm having it with some milk and some vanilla syrup, which is the way I like almost all my black teas. I like with milk and a little bit of sweetener. Anyway, so yeah. If you did get yourself a tasty beverage, I'd love to hear what it is and what you're drinking, and also, what are you crafting? I'd love to hear about your projects and how your creative life is going. I began a new project. I did a Christmas Day cast on. I thought about doing it on Christmas Eve because I can't remember who started it, but there was like a Christmas Eve cast on, and I think most people did socks most of the time. It was a thing, and people would, anyway. So I know that kind of has been a thing, but I just was tired on Christmas Eve evening, and I just didn't want to put the effort in to get everything ready and wind yarn and count. Cast-ons are always a lot of counting, and I was just like, no, not tonight. But I did the next day, Christmas Day. I cast on. Can you guess? I'll give you 5 seconds. Or whatever. I'm not really counting seconds, but I'll give you a moment. Okay, you have your guess? All right. I cast on a pair of socks. Here they are, 2 cuffs. And here is the yarn. This is that sock set that was in the voting options a few weeks ago. So this did not win the vote, but I'm still gonna cast it on now anyway. Because I was kind of excited about it too, and I thought this yarn was very worthy of a Christmas Day special project cast on. And here is the heel color. I have not wound this yet. But yeah, this yarn is from Maddfuzzy. And she does 100% East Frisian wool sock yarn. And this is the first time I've done 100% wool socks. Like with no nylon, no silk, no bamboo, no other fiber to give a little more strength and a little more durability. But this East Frisian wool is a sturdy and a little bit, it's a very rustic woolly wool, kind of a little bit on the itchy prickly side. So it's not like a super fine merino that is going to be super soft and fall apart quicker. But yeah, just, it's been lovely to knit with this yarn. It feels nice to knit with, and I think it looks really lovely as it knits up. I think it's knitting up very nicely. I like how the colors are coming together. And yeah, I also have made, maybe an inch or so, inch and a half of progress on the sleeve for the Fidelia cardigan, which we are kind of having a very informal buddy knit or KAL, whatever you want to call it. And if you want a cardigan for the winter and you want to start a cardigan, go for it. And if you really like the Fidelia cardigan, you can knit the Fidelia cardigan. And yeah. And this is where the other cuff is. Here is the cuff for the second sleeve. So that is the state of the crafting, and reading has been going very well too. And let's talk about the books. Yeah, there is one that I had finished last week that I didn't talk about, and that is The Clockmakers Daughter by Kate Morton, which is a pretty epic, like, historical fiction, like, intertwined stories around a place. I can't remember the name of the estate, but an estate in the countryside near a river, very beautiful. It's kind of centered around that place and different people and different stories that happened in that house or around the house, on the grounds, in different times of history. The main central story is set in Victorian era. So the main story is Victorian English story, and it has a lot of Dickensian atmosphere to it, which is great. I'm a fan. And so, but then other stories, it was this book wasn't the easiest to read, and I kind of kept putting it down and coming back to it, and then putting it down and coming back to it, because it wasn't like super holding my attention as strongly as some other books did. And because of all the different stories and going back and forth, it did kind of not have a lot of momentum. It felt very slow in its progress. But I did keep coming back to it, though, and I wanted to come back to it. But it just took me a while. And it was kind of on the background for part of the time. But I did finish it, and I really liked it. The prose and the like intricate intertwinings of the stories were really good. I was okay with the ending. I wasn't blown away by how it finished at all. It felt kind of abrupt, to be honest, and pretty much the central story feels pretty well resolved, but a lot of the secondary stories, there were a lot of things a lot of questions and a lot of connections that weren't necessarily made on the page for us, like drawing everything to a conclusion. The other stories were left very open, and a lot of things, but it wasn't, I was okay with it, though. It wasn't to a level that it was like, I needed to know. I wasn't desperate to know. And I think, part of her thematic point was also that those stories continue, and then new stories will start, and this, it's always kind of left a little unfinished and open and merging into the next new story. So I think it is a book I want to reread, because I think I might find even more connections the next time. I think it definitely would stand up to a reread. But I'm not in a hurry to reread it. Yeah. And I also finished this week, I finished What Is Not Yours Is Not Yours by Helen Oyemi. It is a collection of short stories. And yeah, I finished the last story, and you're not gonna like every story equally in these kind of collections, but there were plenty of stories that I really, really enjoyed reading, and were very interesting. I think there are parts of this book that went over my head, but not in a way that made me feel bad. But I just feel like there's a lot that she packs in. I think you could think about symbols that she's using. I think there's a lot there that if you wanted to dig into and analyze, it would be very interesting and rich ideas that you could find. But I did not do that. And yeah, but I feel like I experienced this book more than I understood it, and the experience was a good experience. And I had feelings, and sometimes that feeling was confusion or surprise. or what? But yeah. Yeah. It just felt kind of magical, kind of timeless, um, very, very fairy tale, um, but also incorporating like modern day and mundane things. Um, so yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. I definitely want to reread it because I think I might get more out of it in rereads. I think you might start to see those connections um, going back. Yeah, so really good. And I'm like in the final quarter. I'm like pretty much exactly 75% into Plain Bad Heroines by Emily Danforth and really enjoying it. It is definitely another element of stories within stories and multiple timelines. Basically, mostly two timelines. It's set at in New England, United States, in like at a women's boarding school or girls' boarding school. And some very tragic events happened there at the fictional school, those fictional events, but the terrible things happened in like 1902 and the aftermath of that, and then in 2014 they're making a movie about what happened back then in history. And also there's books involved because there seems to possibly maybe be a cursed book that was a catalyst or instigator for those terrible events, and it might still be actively cursing and instigating trouble in the filming of the modern day movie in 2014. And we have the author of a historical book about what happened at the school. She's a consultant on the film and interacting with the lead actors, and a lot of parallels between the two stories. And there's also a lot of female romances happening. And it's very gothic and spooky, and the prose is really nice. It's really well written, and I think for sometimes dual timeline stories can have pacing problems for me. Sometimes going back and forth does slow things down, and sometimes you're only interested in one of the times, and you're not really caring about the other story in the other time. I do prefer the historical, like, past story, and I'm not in the modern day filmmaking and the actresses, and that's not as interesting to me, but I am interested enough. It's not like, ooh, I hate that story, but I love the other story. But yeah, and I did start another advanced reader copy, or eARC, from NetGalley. This is a book that's due to be released in April of 2021, and it is a novel called Folklorn by Angela Mi-young-her, and she is Korean American, and it is about a first generation Korean American young woman and her family and the dynamics in her family. And also it's very rooted in Korean folklore and mythology, because her mother claims that the women in her family all have kind of a curse on them to be connected with one of the tragic heroines in a Korean folk story. Each a different folk story, but there are so many tragic Korean folk stories. Well, a lot of folklore tends to have sadder endings, or like neutral, not, or bittersweet, or not really great but not super sad endings. I think a lot of tragic things happen in mythology, so it's not just Korean folklore, but there are many tragic Korean folk stories. So her mother raised her telling her all the stories, and kind of was always telling her, don't listen to those voices, don't protect yourself from these stories, even though her mother was telling her the stories all the time. It's all of those things, and kind of and I'm like 27% of the way through, but I'm really liking it. It is not a book I want to speed through, because it's not like a lighthearted, zippy, fluffy kind of book. And the prose is really beautiful, and I like to enjoy it, but also the things that she's talking about, and it's things that you need to think about and let sink in, and it's just not super lighthearted and zippy and plotty. It's not like a page turner like kind of a deal. So, but I'm liking it so far, and yeah. So I hope that your crafting and your reading and everything is going well. And in a few days, it will be 2021. 2021 will be here in just a few days. So I think that's a good thing. I'm cautiously hopeful for 2021. Yeah. So I hope that you are enjoying the end of the year holiday season. I hope that you are taking care, and that all of your loved ones and your family are well and safe. And talk to you next time. Bye bye.